Well, let's call this moving to order. At, 9:03 a.m. We'll start with introductions.
James Kaufman, City Control.
Mark Myers, for name.
Jennifer Pearson,
Todd Wilson, City of Indianapolis. Steve Hardy, City of Lincoln. Eric Walton, understand. Sean Northup, MPO.
Anna Grumling, NPO.
Jennifer Kroll, NPO.
Sounds good, MPO.
I think so there's a brewery.
There we go.
On the audio is low and muffled. According to staff.
Low and muffled. Okay. Keep going, I'll mess with it.
All right. First item, minutes from our May 15th, 2026. Think everybody got those electronically, any additions or corrections?
We did have one correction. Natasha noted that she abstained from meeting minutes approval, because she wasn't at the meeting, which made sense, so we can go ahead and make that correction if we were to, I know that's supposed to.
Okay. Nothing else? Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah. Todd is the second, who's the first?
Todd was first, Steve second.
Who was second?
You can have it. All you speak for.
All right, next item, acceptance of financial report from.
All right, financial report is in the packet. Scroll down to here. In the financial report, there's our reimbursement from INDOT. They've been pretty good about getting those in. We've been trying to get them, get our reimbursements to INDOT every month. They got the reimbursement back through May, so that's pretty recent. We're paid up through May. Local match dues, after policy approved them, those invoices have gone out. We haven't gotten any dues back. Those typically come in about half before the end of this year and about half wait till after January 1st. A few organizations wait till like the very last minute to pay those, which is totally fine. Those aren't due till February of 2027. So there's lots of time on those. Over $800,000 of interest earned in from the federal funds investment, January to June 2026. So that's really good. In the budget, we had assumed zero, right? So anything there's extra and rolls right back into the pot for planning. On the expenses side, we've spent down about 40% of our PL, our total purchase order for this year. About half a year. That's good. That's more than we typically spend down at this time. It's almost entirely because of the household travel survey that we did last year. Was a one-off $1.2 million project. So we're just kind of playing catch up on that, but we're in good shape financially. We've still got 60% of our purchase order from this year. We already have our submission in for next year. That's with the state for signature right now. So hopefully we'll get that one early like we did last year. The ready regions that we're managing, the east and west side 70-40 and project 180 are 92.6% dispersed. Lots of conversation about that last 8%. working that out. Anna's spent a whole lot of time on that. And then the 2026 federal funding exchange sent out about 28% so far to the VLPAs. That's all on the letting schedules. And say that one is also on track too. Believe there's reports down here as well if you want to dig into the income statements. Those are all in the packet as well.
I will also say, I think we are close to wrapping up audit. According to Kristen, we haven't had what we call like the exit meeting yet, so we don't have the findings. But we do anticipate bringing the audit in front of the executive committee in next September.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. And the.
Yeah. Item number 4 is the IMPO financial resolutions. We do always break out the IMPO funded projects and contracts, the ready contracts, just to differentiate what the funding source is. This one is additional $25,000 to HMTV. If you don't know, HMTV essentially is our, I'm gonna call them on-call engineer. They help us review all of the applications when they come in. And you double check, essentially gut check when you guys are submitting projects that the numbers look accurate. And there is no, I'm gonna say over inflation of numbers or under, because remember, if you ask for $1 million and the project's really 2.5, you have to eat the rest of it, and oftentimes you can't, the project fails to move forward. So it's of best interest for both of us that those projects are accurate. We only anticipated this year to do a call for about 60 to 70 million dollars worth of projects. As you know, NDOT did not renew the federal exchange agreement. As a result, we're doing a 2-year call, which is going to result in, we hope, twice as many projects being submitted and needing to be reviewed and recommended to the board. I think we're at $152 million is the call to projects this fall. And so because of that, we need more money than the ancient contract. Any questions?
I'm curious, Anna, have you found that it's been helpful? Like, are they finding things
Yes.
that are helping both, like the person asking to them in?
Yeah, we have, Kristen isn't here to be able to cite examples, clarification on numbers. Us being able to go back and ask for more information of the locals on the project. Yeah, it has been tremendously helpful. We don't have engineers on staff. Sometimes NPOs do have engineers on staff, and this is kind of our way. We don't have enough volume to actually have somebody on staff. $50,000 so cheaper.
Yeah, I was seeing figure as the locals saying the project was number 2, I think it was like set eyes on. So,
You think that sometimes I think they're.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's never fun to surprises.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The ready resolution.
Yeah, so this one's HWC amendment number 3, fully funded by the Ready Grant. We, knock on wood, are nearing the completion of Ready 1 grant administration. Good news, bad news, we underestimated the ability to administer these projects on our side of the fence. I think that's great news because we're saving taxpayer money. The bad news of it is IEDC wants us to spend all of the money, right? So like they don't want us to give back money. That is seen as, I don't know, that we didn't need it. That's not true. We just estimated incorrectly on the administrative side of that. So we are proposing using a portion of the funds, $96,000 to create what we're calling a Ready 1.0 summary report. This would highlight the 49 projects within, I'm gonna clarify the 3 regions. So you guys should know that Ready 2.0 combined the 180, the 70/40 and the White River. It's kind of right, the RDA Ready 2.0. We have gotten permission to pull in some of the White River projects and create a completion report. The idea here is to have a nice document that shows the projects that were funded and completed. This includes updated project photos that when you guys are looking to justify Ready 3.0 or just saying we used our funding, look at what we did. a document. So, yeah, it's a summary report.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. So moved. Second. Motion in second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Yeah, last month we started off with 6.
Yeah. So lots of changes on the national level regarding Title VI policy and policy updates. So we went ahead and updated all of those to make sure we are in compliance with the new federal guidance coming out of the federal government. We also removed direct language that are no longer words that we should be using according to the federal government, including environmental justice, benefits and burdens, limited English proficiency, and desperate impact. We also had a change in staff. Paul Jackson was the Title VI coordinator. Paul left is now at the city of Bloomington, and Bob Laura, who is taking on the Title VI coordinator role for us, and we've updated all those information to the boards. This document does need to be approved, this board.
Okay. Any questions on that? Motion to approve. Second. So second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Status updates, what to be planning?
So, we have, so I don't know if you remember 2 months ago, Joseph Garrity was going to talk about some of the work that Norksey has done in housing. He had a family emergency come up and couldn't attend, so it's on this agenda to talk about a little bit about what the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission is doing in housing. And then after that, I think John and I want to talk about just the strategic plan. Joseph, do you want to go ahead and take it over?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Anna, and good morning, everyone. My name's Joe Garrity, and I am from the East in Central Ohio in Columbus, and I'm going to get my slides up real quick. Shooting a request. Request has been sent. All right. 1 second. All right, folks. All right, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Good, good. All right. So again, I'm Joe Garrity. I work at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Thank you all for having me today. I hope the weather is as good in Indianapolis as it is in Columbus. That air quality last week was not fun. So first, it's nice to not have to explain what a metropolitan planning organization is. At MORPC, we are a regional council, and we represent 98 different local governments in a 15-county region. Our board is over 170 members at commission. Our executive committees, 14 different people. But we focus on transportation, environment, local governments, transportation. If you see the map there, Franklin County, which consists of Columbus, and then the northern county, Delaware County. That line there is the essentially the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There's some small areas in Union County and in Licking County and Fairfield that also include the MPO. And then a lot of those color counties around, we have a rural transportation planning organization, or an RTPO. And so that work is also taking place at Morpsey. Go to the next slide. So we do a lot of different items. One thing that I do in my capacity as Chief Strategy Officer is we have a decent amount of external relations. So one item in Columbus that we kind of focus on, a lot of people talk about the Columbus Way. We have a really collaborative partnership with our business community. And when we have these different discretionary grants, these infra grants or these build grants, or trying to compete for member-directed spending, rather than competing against one another, we have a group that's called the Columbus Region Coalition, which is a group of 16 different regional partners that advocate and work in partnership with our congressional delegation with one voice. So Ohio State isn't competing with the city of Columbus, or Morpsey isn't competing with Franklin County. We're using the same federal lobbyists and saying, here are the key different priorities for strategic investment, and we're advocating together with our congressional delegation. Just in 2024, November of 2024, a levy passed here in the Columbus region for bus rapid transit. And this is a unique opportunity for us to build out better transit in the region. That levy will build out 5 different BRT routes. And in addition to that, 27.5% of those levy dollars come to Morpsey to build out transit supportive infrastructure that don't have to be on those routes. So we can build out trails and sidewalks anywhere in the Central Ohio Transit Authority's service area. Another unique kind of tool in our toolbox is we have about 8,000 to 10,000 defense-related jobs in the region. And we actually just got an amendment in the National Defense Authorization Act that can help Morpsey create an intergovernmental support agreement with the Defense Supply Center of Columbus. And so we just continue to try to be a good partner to our veterans and our defense installations here in the region. If you're just looking at it from a job perspective, I mean, 8,000 to 10,000 jobs is a lot. And then also how we can support our veterans is something that we always try to work to do. So here in Central Ohio, we are a growing region, the fastest growing region in the Midwest. We are about 2.5 to 2.6 million people right now. By 2050, we will be a region of 3.1 million people. But our goal is, growth is good, but we don't just want to grow bigger. We want to grow better as a region. Again, those numbers I mentioned earlier, you can see them there. But the issue is you can see a lot of increase in people, a lot of increase in jobs, but the growth in estimated households is not living up to those expectations. Again, here, 3.1 million people, 2.5 now. More people being born than dying. We're getting a lot of net migration from folks overseas as well. So why is our region growing? We're getting a lot of economic development issue. We also have really strong suburbs. We have the Ohio State University. We're also the state capital for the state of Ohio. But we've had a lot of private sector investment in the last 10 years. We had Intel announced back in 2021. And then Anduril, the defense industry, was announced last year, where they're building a base in Pickaway County, which is south of downtown. And this is all a job is a house that goes to sleep at night, right? And you see these mega economic development projects. This isn't just impacting Central Ohio, it's impacting the entire state. So this map here, Intel to the northeast part of Central Ohio, Anduril to the southeast, And then there have been additional investments in Honda. Marysville, which is an exurb of Columbus, is the headquarters for the North American market for Honda. Again, all of these investments are increasing jobs and increasing the amount of people, which then, as the MPO and the RTPO, how are we building out the infrastructure and the housing to keep up with this development? And then you look at the housing demand and the supply. Back in 2004, the region built over 18,000 units. And then you look from 2020 to 2024, how stagnant we have been in building housing. Some of that with the market, when the building, you can see a significant decline in response to the Great Recession, but we just haven't been keeping up with demand. We have noticeably increased in 2025. Those numbers are new, fresh off the presses from this week at 14,000, which is a significant increase. But again, our region was significantly smaller in 2004, and we were building a lot more housing. Go to the next slide. So why are we dealing with some of these challenges? What we've noticed is limited gap financing. Of course, in any region across the country right now, NIMBYs are not in my backyard attitudes in regards to any type of development going on in the region. It's costing more to build residential development, and then just uncertainty in the market. Again, this illustrates how there's fewer housing units available in Central Ohio. Rates in 2013 substantially lower than our substantially higher compared to 2023. Again, some of that is probably in response to the Great Recession back in 2008. And then you'll see a continued trend in housing prices. 229,000 in 2018 and 2024, up to 377,000 for the weighted average sales prices of the average home here in Central Ohio. The market has cooled some since 2024, but again, the consistent theme that we're seeing is sales prices, the mean average, are just consistently going up and up in the Columbus region. So one thing that we did in regards to try to better inform the public and some of our strategic partners on the affordability challenge and housing was we partnered with the Columbus Dispatch and the Ohio State University in a unique survey on how we could get better feedback in regards to why are we facing this challenge, but more importantly, how are people reacting or feeling and thinking about this challenge? And based on that survey analysis we received last year, is 73% say housing costs are too high. What percent of people can find affordable housing in Central Ohio? Only 38%, according to our study. Again, this slide's really interesting in regards to, and just eye-opening, is what are people giving up in order to pay the rent? So for households that are making less than $35,000 a year, 62% of them are making decisions in regards to having less food on the table in order to pay for rent. Even at homes of $100,000 or more, 13% of them are making that same decision. So this is something that is impacting their livelihood, from food to clothing, utilities. And then when we're thinking about cultivating the next generation of leaders and keeping people and raising young minds, people aren't able to go to school, work well, and exceed in life if they can't afford to live and raise a family and have food on the table. And then here's some of the report card from this the survey as well. You see the way that folks are reacting to transportation needs. They're still a net positive when it comes to transportation, when it comes to economic development, about even when it comes to environmental issues. The main negative is negative 44% in regards to housing, and only a plus 30 in overall satisfaction for planners and decision makers here in Central Ohio. So what does MORPC do in some of our day-to-day work? We have several different roundtables here in the region. So we have a regional policy roundtable that goes into our executive committee and commission that focuses on public policy issues. We have our TAC and our CAC who put together our metropolitan transportation plan. We also have a regional sustainability roundtable that's focused on environmental issues. We have a comprehensive economic development strategy in our economic development district, and then our Central Ohio Rural Transportation Planning Organization. So in all of those efforts, we try to elevate housing into each one of those strategies and or those plans. So back during the pandemic in 2020, in partnership with the City of Columbus and other local governments and the business community, we put together a regional housing strategy. It's a bit outdated now, but it's something that we wanted to get a better lay of the land and provide different tools to our communities to see how they could potentially build more housing. Let's see. And again, looking at the healthy housing market, a mix of all types. Like most regions, where we're missing is the missing middle, townhomes, duplexes, courtyard housing. These are the items that are really we're lacking in producing and building, specifically since that 2004 number I mentioned earlier. A lot of our local governments are doing a lot of good work in regards to updating their zoning for housing. The City of Columbus, for the first time in over 50 years, updated their housing and zoning. And what is advantageous about the updating of the zoning is the bus rapid transit levy that passed back in 2024. The goal is to build transit-oriented development and affordable housing on those routes. So a lot of the zoning is in alignment with those bus rapid transit routes. And then we're seeing in Licking County the framework, and that is in response to Intel. A lot of local governments in this community weren't ready for housing and building more housing in regards to those jobs. So that was a plan. And okay, how can we rethink some of our zoning processes and update zoning in Licking County? And then Gahanna, Reynoldsburg, Whitehall, and Dublin are just a few other local communities who've recently updated their zoning. That's just the slide there. Again, some of our responses to the region, we've been doing a lot of different things, from updating our data to advocating at the federal level. I'm sure many of you are aware of the 21st Century Road to Housing Bill, which became law a few weeks ago. We're working with our congressional delegation to see how we can bring some of those funds to the region and build more housing. And I'll get into some of these other items here in the next few slides. As the MPO, we do a lot of mapping and data for local governments. This allows them to make better decisions and allow for more maps for housing. We have a local government intern program. Again, this is through the lens of those different mega projects that we're doing. So we're working in partnership with The Ohio State University in placing graduate students near these mega sites so they can be the point person on infrastructure and housing projects near these economic development opportunities. And so what this does is they become the point person on this economic development project and how can it impact that community. What we're really facing here as a region is a lot of our more rural communities that are near these mega sites. They don't have the resources that the city of Columbus or Franklin County has to combat these challenges. And we're trying to cultivate and be a resource to these community members that are dealing with much more significant changes rather quickly, and want to help them navigate those issues. In addition to that, a lot of our local government leaders want to be a part of something bigger. And this is a unique way to keep public servants here in the region and get engaged with unique challenges such as housing and leveraging business opportunities in the region. We also have one kind of unique tool at MORPC is it's community-based planning assistance. One thing we learned from Rhode Island is Rhode Island has a program called Rhode Island Competes. And this was in response to the bipartisan infrastructure law and ARPA and all these other different federal funding opportunities. And they would have task-oriented consultants and loan them out to different communities to compete for different grants. And what we wanted to do is through the lens of all of these rural communities who can't compete for these funds is to provide a planner or a MORPC staffer on a short-term basis, help them with a short-term need in their community. Oh, let's see. Oh, it's not going. There we go. So again, there's our planner pool program. There's some short-term staffing to support and fill gaps. We have, if there's an RFP process, we can help them with pre-qualified consultants too, so we can have that list and support them going through that process. We also provide some direct services for income eligible folks. We have about 15 to 20 staffers that work at MORPC that weatherize homes to ensure that homes are cool in the summer and warm in the winter. And then also some home repair programs as well. Again, we do everything from attic and sidewall insulation, air sealing, safety checks, just really important stuff for keeping homes cool and warm. There's another slide here. And then this sort of gets into next steps. We're dealing with this challenge. The mayor of Columbus is Andrew Ginther, and he has been really focused on we need to build 200,000 units here in the next 5 years. And how can we do that? And we can only do it by looking at this challenge from a more regional perspective. So the Columbus Partnership is a group of different CEOs, about 90 different companies. And we're forming or incubating a new organization called the Regional Housing Coalition that is looking at housing as how are we building and financing and meeting this goal of 200,000 units. This isn't going to be an easy challenge. I think I said 5 years earlier, it's in the next 10 years. But the goal here is to get local governments and the business community and builders together to build more. One area that we're working from is we incubated something called the War Room. It's a really weird name, I know. But the partnership and MORPC and a few other local governments, we tried to all come together and better compete for federal funding here in the region. And the goal here is how can we do the same thing for housing? We also have economic development organizations, One Columbus, and these regional networks that are focused on economic development. And that's another framework that we can do that we're hoping to do with housing. There's still a lot of next steps. We're in the process of hiring a CEO to lead that effort, but there's a lot of work that we still need to do. So I just threw a ton of slides and information at you. I apologize for that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Hey, Joe, what does it look like on the revenue side for you guys? What do you guys use to pay for staff time on housing initiatives? Does that cross over into your PL work? Do you flex infrastructure funds, or are those mostly like local taxes generating for Morpsey?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. We typically flex PL funds. Uh, for my salary too, is I don't know what the law is like in Indiana, but in Ohio, our members aren't mandated to be a part of Morpsey. So we go out and do member visits on a day-to-day to retain and attract new members at the agency. So some of the funding too is member driven through member dues.
Do you flex any project funds over for planning? Just generally, not just
Yes.
how.
Yes. Yep.
Other questions? No. Joe, thanks for getting us on your schedule. Thanks for rescheduling and making it work.
Yes.
We really
Yeah, no,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for your flexibility. I'm sorry I couldn't make it back in May, but wherever we can be of service, if anyone wants to do a deeper dive or spend some more time, again, threw a lot at you with those slides. We're here to be of help.
Morpsey's been an awesome partner, so Columbus is a really good comp for Central Indiana. The main difference was the number of jurisdictions you mentioned is more what we would look like without Unigov from Indianapolis, right? So they didn't consolidate their county. We have, one Indianapolis, they have Columbus, and Franklin County is, I don't know, how many jurisdictions are in Franklin County?
Oh, goodness. So I think so you have City of Columbus, there are 17 different townships in Franklin County, and then several suburbs. So, I mean, I would say at least 30 political subdivisions in Franklin County.
Right, so administratively, like that's the main difference between us and them, but just geographically and the way the city lays out, it ends up being very similar. We've had a couple of staff level peer exchanges with them. We've shared our safety information with them. We've shared lots of transit information back and forth. I know, Jenny, you guys have to do with Morpsey, and we've gotten buses from them in the past pre-referendum days. So there's been a lot of conversation. I think will continue to be as we continue to talk about this. Thank you so much, Joe.
I probably got one question.
Oh, yeah.
What have you actually done to make housing more affordable? That's all we ever hear. We need affordable housing. We need affordable housing. What did you actually do?
Thank you so much for the question. So as a regional planning commission, what we have been doing right now is surveys in regards to part of the problem, right? So conveying the need and the problem and how communities can build more, correct? So we're only going to lower the cost of housing if communities have the tools and the resources to build. So directly Morpsey alone isn't going to be able to solve or lower the cost of housing, but we can provide the tools and the resources and the data to communities to make it easier for them to build, which will then make it the cost of housing cheaper. So that's the indirect way on how Morpsey, our stakeholders, can reduce the cost of housing.
So we're hearing from our legislators that we need to figure out how to do it at a local level, and some of us we're Central Indiana here don't have the resources to be able to do what you're saying.
Right.
And then, and I see, and excuse me here for saying this, but I see a lot of smoke, like people, we need to help with housing, we need to do this, and we don't have the money to do that. I'm just curious. How do you ever do that? And we keep talking about it. I've been mayor for 10 years and I've heard the same story for 10 years and it never changes. And then we have the federal government and we're going back to the housing bill that just got passed. I think the president never did sign that. And there was the best statement I ever heard him say, that he didn't want to lower the standards of housing to put next door to somebody else's house that has invested a lot of money over all the years, that is going to take down their property values, whenever the federal government or somebody could be thinking about lowering the interest rate. I mean, that was the smartest thing I ever heard our president say. Lower the interest rate and we're gonna fix affordable housing. So it makes sense to me on why we're looking at direction.
Yeah. So thank you, Mayor, for that comment and the question. And I think a more direct way that here in the region that communities have worked to try to lower the cost of housing was back in 2025, so just last year, the mayor of Columbus, there was a levy, a bond issue on the ballot for $500 million for affordable housing. So that was the largest local housing investment in Columbus's history. That was, one way that you can lower the cost of housing, thereby being able to build more with those $500 million. But again, the role of an MPO or the role of a regional council is how can we cultivate that environment where we have more resources, tools, or consultants that can make it easier for our members to build.
And that's pretty consistent with the philosophy we heard in Atlanta. And we're doing a series of interviews right now around the red line with developers, and they're saying the same thing. It's the costs are up, gap financing doesn't exist. The cost of money is really high for developers, so they're competing against stocks that are going crazy. As an asset class, housing isn't quite as good as it's been in the past. And so the philosophy has been build as much as you can and trickle down housing, right? So if you're building $650,000 houses in Franklin, that's fine, as long as you're increasing supply, then like you're contributing to somewhere else is able to have stuff that was built a decade ago or self-achieving. So that's what we're hearing, and anything you can do at the regional level to increase supply is going to be helpful for it. So that's been the theory. I don't know that we can prove that it plays out that way, but that's what everyone's kind of working toward right now.
Thank you.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
The next thing we're gonna talk about is obviously just the IMPO's strategic plan. So it in my mind was very clear in 2018 when we adopted or were working on the 2018 strategic plan and to communicate the separate templates. Perception issues for being able to operate quicker, faster, and be a little bit more nimble. I'll tell you, this strategic plan isn't as clear. But what it's shaping up in my mind, obviously transportation is the bread and butter, fundamentally what this topic is. But there seems to be a stronger need in some of these other areas. Exactly, like right, housing, it's been just I feel like a multifaceted has come up in a number of topical conversations. Technology, as technology is advancing, not that we're going to introduce Waymos anytime soon, but just kind of moving down that, and we do have some staff turnover we anticipate in the next couple of years, and I think we'll look to advance that. But I think there are a couple of things that I want to use you guys as our sounding board and just get clarification on your thoughts in that. So with that, I'm gonna kick it over to Sean. And I think we're gonna try to get your thoughts and opinions. I understand this is just a subset of the larger group, but we have a transit agency, right? This is very specifically kind of, right? We have a county representative. It helps us with the cross section. We still really want this next strategic plan to kind of focus on our 4 pillars of convene, inform, plan, and bond. So, right, convening conversations regionally, informing those conversations with data, sample ordinances and housing to have the ability to provide quite a bit of data and ordinances at the local level. Plan, right, if there's a need for some regional housing studies. We're looking at the maximizing value of land and the impacts of SB1 on individual organizations in the region. And then again, just the funding component. For those of you who haven't been watching, Congressman Flood, Nebraska led a housing bill that just recently passed. It lists the MPO, or metropolitan organizations, as entities available to go after additional funding for housing, assuming it does get appropriated in appropriations. So there may be some future grant opportunities for us to go after in housing. But I think we, and it sounds like you are as well, just a little unclear on exactly what the next steps are. And so we're just gonna try to have a dialogue to understand some clarification points.
Right, so the 3 main parts of the last strategic plan were, get statute to move out from the city of Indianapolis and expand into the additional areas, land use, economic development, housing, resiliency, and then transportation as the core. We've done that. We've started to kind of dip a toe into each one of those areas and have had different responses to each one of them. Right, some of like housing is the one that's been open arms, come on in, anything we can do to figure it out. Land use, I think the planners love to be convened, but it's really clear the authorities at the local level, so it's a support and inform role, right? Economic development, there's a very narrow path there to do the federal stuff, to do SEDS and support the RDA work. Resiliency, there was a bit of a wider band and it was associated with grants that were available in the last administration that are not available in this administration. So there are lots of opportunities 3 years ago on it and pretty much nothing right now. And so that's gonna vary, I think, based on what's going on there and what the focus is. So we wanted to kind of get we wanted to report back to you all what we're seeing when we're looking at other places. And then give your feedback on direction here, just kind of refine direction. We're not looking to vote up or down on initiatives here. We listed 106 different initiatives from other MPOs, best practices, things that we've listed. There's no way at 15 staff that we can do 106 additional initiatives on top of the core work that we do. We want to be really strategic about it and just try and identify what's going to work and where to go. So we'll use a few different ways for feedback here. One is this poll, everybody. Is everybody on here? Can you, if you're not, can you scan the QR codes and we'll just make sure that this is working? Oh, yeah. We're digging Kid Rock on them.
Post home and smell lunch.
Right, I guess you're gonna have
That's
to
the other
calculate
way
my
around.
own, okay, yeah.
Well, I just need the best engineering school in the state on there. Uh-oh, what is it? Which one?
I'll make sure that's review.
Lost my promotion there. Appreciate it. All right, we got 7 in. Oh, man.
Oh,
It's-
hi.
All incorrect. It's all stage. That's all right. All right, it's working. So that's all we need to know. So this is the core question that we've kind of come to on the strategic plan. How can we create the greatest value for member communities as we work toward our shared regional goals over the next 5 to 10 years? That's really become kind of the North Star of this one. In the interest of reporting back the trends that we're hearing from elsewhere, Fourth Economy, our consultant, did a really nice job of pulling this together, and Jen Sloan is on this call as well. You can jump in anytime you want, Jen, if you want to correct me here, but we're seeing a trend among MPOs nationally, particularly our peer MPOs, to move from housing studies to ongoing regional housing function. From counts toward outcome tracking, so they're analyzing how new priorities in housing and land use can support regional mobility. Neutral analysis to structured convening. That's something where we think we excel in when we look at our services versus peers. Recommendations to implementation learning. I think there's opportunity here. We talked about this in the last strategic plan, but keeping track of the recommendations in regional plans and local plans, we've had that exercise. We've gone through local comprehensive plans and seen what the recommendations are. Tracking progress toward those is definitely an opportunity, so plans don't sit on shelves mainly. Moving from disjointed zoning to strategic growth modeling. We'll talk a little bit about Atlanta's livable centers initiative. We've done some zone support stuff around transit, mixed results, right? So the city has had some trouble. The city of Indianapolis has had some trouble supporting some of those land use decisions. And in some cases, it's been really good, right? They've been able to allow ADUs in their higher density stuff. So there's been some wins there and some frustrations for sure. It's not a silver bullet. From data portals to regional data infrastructure, another area where we feel like we excel. Our data portals are quite good, our dashboards are quite good. And I joked when we went to AMPO in Providence last year, the national MPO conference, it was check out my dashboard, bro, was kind of the theme of it. Everyone's building dashboards. Some are really, really useful. Some are just pretty and some are neither, right? So we're striving to make sure that it's good and useful stuff and that your staff knows about it. That's become kind of a central part of the job. From periodic updates to continuous monitoring, that's really expensive, right? So to be able to monitor where you are in real time is really expensive. I would say the traffic count data and the crash data is the closest we've come to that. We try to update that data as quickly as possible and make it available. Those two ways that's the closest we've gotten to monitoring. I'm not sure we're going to go much beyond that in our region. And then from MPO owned data to data convening, which is something we're feeling really, really strongly. We are trying to make as much data available to you and your staffs as possible. And we don't own the majority of that data. We license it and pass it through. We try and coordinate all the data that we can from all of the planners around the region and make that available in kind of one place. So we have these strategic choices questions. Some of the feedback that we got was contradictory. And so we have some of these are this versus that. These are meant to spur discussion. And so we're curious to see where we land. When we do these questions, you can click anywhere on the screen. But here's the first example. You should be able to see this on your screen now. One of the things we heard was, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, we, did stakeholder interviews, we did a survey to tech policy in the executive committee. And we got comments back that one, the MPO should advocate at the State House more for our local priorities. And then we got comments that the MPO should stay kind of the think tank policy data provider. And so curious on where we should land in that. We kind of do a little both right now. Right, it is sometimes hard to coalesce on what we should be pushing for with counties, cities, and towns. And right, we have AIM, we have the Association of County Commissioners, or AIC, Association Indiana Counties. Right, and so there are already very strong folks at the State House. Obviously trying to defend transit, like when those conversations are coming up as well. So just curious where this group lands. Okay. Seem to be landing. John, I feel like this is the first time I've seen this type of doc thing.
Yeah, it's just an image you can click on anywhere. You can click somewhere that makes no sense if you want. We can't use federal funds to advocate directly. Any advocacy that we would do would be with local funds, the ones that we identify when we do dues that are dedicated to it, and it would be very back of house stuff, probably. That's another question we have was how public facing should we do with this stuff? one of the things we heard was that the strength of the MPO is that we stay non-political and we'll strive for that. But probably not overtly, right? Like we'll just stay out of politics, right? Just try to have conversations and get things done, but, yeah, and this is also a conversation we've had with the RDA several times, and Mayor Badness has said, you know, the RDA can pull together political might quicker and more efficiently than anybody entirely on local funds. It seems very appropriate, for them to do it, and so we've definitely opened the thoughts on this.
I think it's kind of a disjointed question, just because it's a local healthcare priority doesn't mean it's political. I mean, we all want more money for roads, we want, less hoops to jump through to get that money for roads. Some things I'm dealing with right now is, I guess, and I missed this, because none of my communities have had this issue, but all the pipes under a state road are the town's issue, even if they're connecting in community structures. And it's like, how is that? But things like that affect all of us, and there's nothing political about it, it's just the state pushing things, so things of that nature, I'm fine with it. But it, like, other things, like if it's housing or do things, everybody's their own opinion on that, but like if it's making the state do their fair share of the roads on, that's how I see it.
Overall common good.
Yeah,
Okay.
like no community's gonna say, no, I don't say today for that.
So this is the other half of that question, the ghost kitchen back of house work versus how public facing should we be, like striving to be a household name. MPO, no one knows what an MPO is, right? We have to explain it. The Joe made that joke too, but it's entirely true. So we got conflicting information here in the surveys. Some people said, you know, really make public pushes, do public education campaigns on this stuff. Others said really work back of house if you can. I think it'll be different for different initiatives, but we were curious and your guidance on this. So how do I, there's not a problem, yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
So I don't think it. If it saves money not doing it, I think it's fine not doing it. It's like, what does it really matter? People know what the MPO is.
Right.
I mean, there's people that have no idea what county council does, and no, I'd say 95% of our county has no idea what county council does, but we're still doing an important thing. So,
I think for me, I don't know. First 5 years, I was just putting my head down doing what we needed to do and check like all the core work products. I will tell you when the governor, Eric Holcomb at the time, started community crossings and went out to Avon and issued $200,000. I was like, wait a minute, we give away $55 million and don't even drop a press release on it. And so that was my first kind of light bulb moment that like, here are things that we can do that are very low cost. That kind of elevate the organization, obviously with the awards. And I think that really gives kudos to your communities, right? We throw out the press releases, we get questions, I just talk about the process, and when they have local questions, I funnel it to the locals, and then we've added the big checks, right? I think that's a win-win, it's a easy way to get, possibly some media coverage, definitely social media coverage, good or bad. You know, some people like the projects and so I think we'll continue to try to push for some of those just easy wins. You know.
May I add, before we move on, so I think I see this as going hand in hand with the last one. So I don't necessarily see that a lot of money needs to be spent on promotional materials to become a household name. As much as I see it being like you in the right places at the right tables, so that when topics that are important to our group do come up, whether regionally, stated, wherever it is, people know that, oh, we need to check in. There's that NPO group that, you know, has been talking about this issue. We need to check in on where they sit with this. So that you can advocate more effectively for people that are making decisions. You need to know who they are.
So this is one that we heard, everybody feels like everybody else gets all the money, right? Everybody gets all the attention. In reality, we spend a lot of time helping smaller communities that when they need help on things. And a lot of time with Indianapolis because they're probably the most dramatically understaffed. And there's a lot happening, right? It's half of our land area, half of our population, right? So, so where on the spectrum versus treat everybody equally? Skew toward the largest, skew toward the smallest. When we look at staff nationally, we've had lots of conversations. Morpsey does tons of work with the city of Columbus and way less with their suburbs, who are all very productive, very well organized and well funded. Sorry.
Is this about time or money or?
I think just broadly resources. Yes, both. I think it's fine if we question if the answer is different, different approaches for different things, right? So that's kind of what it's been. We're intentionally staying away from the project funding discussion here. That happens, you know, in the scoring update that's going on, kind of how that's going. All right, respond to member needs versus help shape regional priorities. So how active in shaping conversation versus listen and react.
I would say listen and react.
Yeah, can you share a little bit, like, what are the types of member needs that you're reacting to? Is it help with funding issues?
In this one, it's setting regional priorities. It's trying to figure out what our next steps are and how we're structuring the work that we do. So things like housing, things like, you know, we hear from some members, like that's something that we really need and really want to work in. Or local planning assistance or complete streets, vision zero, whatever it is. Staff sees what other places are doing around the country and then bring that and say, hey, does that make sense? Or you know, pushes what the focus should be, what the goals should be versus strictly listen and hear what local goals are and how they do. It always leads to an interesting conversation when we get to the regional level, right? Because nobody has time for it when they're day to day. Everyone's, you know, doing their job, focused on their community day to day. And when you back out, it's just a slightly different perspective and you blend everybody's goals.
Sorry, I think we have to have an end goal, but also willing to pivot at the same time, right? Because might have a plan for 5 years, but next year something totally changes and they throw some stupid legislation at us and we have to pivot and change up everything we're doing. So hard to balance that between the two.
It's funny how much whatever the legislative issue du jour is kind of shapes the.
Yeah, because we can plan as much as we want for 5 or 10 years, but they can throw this housing, you know, legislation at us and things like that to change everything. You know, it doesn't matter what we're planning.
All right, so for this next set of questions, I've got these dots across the top here so we don't get lost in them. There's just 8 of them. We've tried to organize the types of MPO support and services that we have into these 8 different groups. This one's data modeling, mapping, and decision tools. We'll share a slide like this that says what the challenge is and what the potential MPO role is, the current things we do and the potential things we could do. And then at the end of each one of them, we'll say 1 to 5, how important should this be as an MPO service over the next 5 to 10 years? And then kind of see how the conversation goes. But data modeling, mapping, decision tools has been a huge focus for us the last few years. It really does kind of land in the support side of it, using reliable data to inform decisions. And so when we produce models, the vision eval model or the travel demand model, we can provide that service directly to municipalities. We share data and mapping and decision support tools as often as we possibly can. Examples are the travel demand model, scenario planning, vision eval and strategic modeling, which is just at the end of development right now, crash data cleanup, traffic counts, things that we could be doing. We talked about regional neighborhood maps. We've talked about, well, there's examples. I'm trying not to preview examples from different areas here, but zoning atlas, state of the region report data, working with partners to expand their dashboards, all examples of data expansions. So from a 1 to 5, how important would you say the data mapping would be then?
And 5's the most important.
5 is most important.
5.
5. All right, second one here is research and best practices. So keeping track of what's out there. Looking at transit planning, utility coordination, Vision Zero, all examples of things that we do now. Could be looking at economic impacts of the investments that we're making. That's something that's come up in a whole bunch of things. Of this potential list, there were, like I said, we had the 106 things. Those all come from that list.
That paper.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, and I couldn't get it not blurred. Sorry about that. Research on missing middle housing, research on well, data centers or water impacts came up several times. Childcare and economic development keeps showing up as a big focus, not something that we've messed with at all or have a plan to right now, but the broader idea of looking at best practices and bringing them back, even within transportation. Trail Family Business Program is something we've been approached about by Visit Indeed. And that's something that we were kind of surprised to learn. It's coordinated at the MPO level all the time, funded at the MPO level. It's resources for businesses that locate along trails and identification of grant opportunities, stuff that business owners, small business owners don't, do or pay attention to. Also puts them on a map as there's a restroom here, or there's bike facilities there. This one is, again, go to the next slide, 1.5. Sorry, our tech support broke the link. We can pull everywhere in the slides, so it's made it a bit of a pain.
I'm not on there, good.
Yeah, I don't know.
3, I don't.
What are we voting on? Is this like for when you had the previous slide, the list of things under expansion of duties or responsibilities?
Yeah, just how critical we would see this. We figured it was not feasible to put 106 different initiatives up there and vote on each one of them and say where it was. We tried to group them into these things. So this is research and best practices.
So is it expanding or continuing what we're doing?
It's expanded.
I don't think your question's clear if it's expanding.
Okay.
Because to me, if you're saying this is what we're doing,
Yeah, we are doing a lot in this area. I would say,
I don't think the NPO needs to do any more than doing, like, we don't need more people.
Just turn your phone around.
So it's kind of I think the question is kind of ambiguous.
Turn around.
If you're looking at it as should we expand this, I don't think the question's asking that.
Yeah.
I know Maryland had like a autonomous vehicle. There's one in volume that's pretty good. With the deliverable those food, robot, yeah, fun. About the dog. Oh, my other dog? Yeah. I like it.
those were scary. Robot guard dogs. Convening, listening, and leadership. And so we heard examples, expansion examples in Atlanta of they were doing a leadership initiative. We've done one that's very grassroots called Serve. Adding one that would be leadership focused is a really interesting idea. And so we do lots of public engagement, lots of surveys, lots of listening. I think, Eric, the question then is like how much, not just on the expansion side, but how important is this moving forward? I know on 1 to 5. Right? Hello.
On the, I don't remember what they called it, leadership, what did they call it, and why not the leadership? Or, no, regional leadership, something or other.
Yeah, regional leadership initiative.
Do you have leaders in your community that would be interested in a monthly series focused on regionalism and, you know, like Atlanta has this and they're like, yeah, our favorite president ended up on it. And then he became so interested, he ran for city council and like, because I would want that to truly be regional. So I would want folks in Hendricks County and Lord Franklin to be able to do something. I just don't know. Are there business government nerds out there that want to take on an additional meeting?
Is it an opportunity to talk about the regional issues and like?
Yeah, like, so theirs was, I'm gonna think like a combination of SKL, but very government focused. Is that a good?
Yeah.
A lot of participation, it's
Yeah, a lot of participation and then those, you know, people, some went on to run in elected positions themselves. Others were just planning commission chairs and some were just now more knowledgeable, you know, community members. I mean, I think it. I think it'd be fun to do. I just don't know if there'd be interest.
Education seems really important, right? Like educating people throughout the region about the issues that we're facing, right? They seem, so many of them seem impossible to solve. And so maybe if you have the right people in the room that are talking about it, understanding each other's perspectives, we can come up with some better solutions. So that's where I see the potential back.
Yeah, and I think that an outside agency such as doing here would convene everybody. We might listen. Because it's an outside agency, but like, if Steve and I sat down with our 3 county commissioners, we'd be better off to run our head through a brick wall.
And I don't know how, yeah, I don't know how Atlanta did it, but I feel like you'd be most successful if there was some sort of status in being involved. Right, like if you're just calling a meeting and
Yeah, no, you,
versus you have to submit.
yeah, to elevate it, like the SKL, it's definitely garnered a lot of attention, and so like, yeah, you want it. What is that?
Standing pay was
Leadership, and so people use it as a resume
Okay.
builder, in Indianapolis, like, yeah, and it's an application, you're selected. Actually, I have an alumni. You know, went through it, and they, you know, each once a month commit to a meeting, you are only allowed to miss one meeting over the course of months, and like at 8th grades. Class of 2026, and like, so yeah, I do agree that some of that, and using it, you know, as a revenue builder to maybe some professionals. So, okay, thank you.
So more direct planning here. So we do the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the Active Transportation Plan, Central Indiana Transit Plan, Regional Housing Study, TOD and Trail Oriented Development. Expansion areas here include small area planning. That's been kind of the gold standard. We saw the LCI, or Movable Centers Initiative in Atlanta. They just talked about the community planning support in Morpsey is another example of it. Rhode Island has their support us too. A bunch of FBOs have moved that way. Planning standards for local plans, direct planning assistance in the planning programs. There's some examples that are direct planning look like here.
So you're talking about expanding the set on the bottom, right?
Yes. Well, how important should planning be, like a 1 to 5?
But to me, there's 2 separate things. There's the transportation, which we're doing right now, and then there's everything else that's down the road. I don't want, like I said, the expanding into other things doesn't make any sense to me. If you go out and talk to all of our communities, they're not looking for answers on housing. They're trying to decide if they want it or not. It's not how can we make it more affordable? It's, do we want to increase all of our, do we want to grow or not? That's a biggest question most of our other communities have. And it's not affordability or anything else. It's, yeah, we want houses, but we don't want this house. We want this house. It's selectiveness. And it's not, And then it's also, can our water supply handle it, can our treatment plant handle it, those type of things, not. We need more houses, how can we get them to go possible, it's, all work needs to be first. But I mentioned,
So they don't, some don't wanna grow it all. Like,
some,
they
some of
don't
them
see
don't,
the benefit
yeah,
of
they
growth,
do not want
they,
to, they want to stay where they are.
That's true for some, yeah.
Mark County Commissioners flat out said, their podcast, if they started a tilt district to stop all growth. Awesome.
Got a built-in urban growth boundary there. Practical toolkits and templates, so resources to communities, creating templates and toolkits, the walk-up research, the transit research we've done, Vision Zero toolkit. The utility coordination white paper are examples of things that we've done. Lots of places do grant application support, so templates or actual grant writing support. Pre-approved building plans have come up, South Bend has gotten into those. Producing pre-approved building plans, policy toolkits, zoning templates are all examples there. Go from a 1 to 5 on practical toolkits and templates. The idea here is we're moving all of them more toward implementation funding policy support. Toolkits are kind of right in the middle. Technical support. So grant writing support, assistance with local planning efforts as requested are things that have happened in the past. Potential expansions here are additional resources on grant writing support, federal and state reporting. So an example of that came up in the surveys was 1001 created a bunch of housing reporting requirements. And a lot of those things are standardized across the state or across the region. We can provide, maps and support to help with that reporting stuff, just to ease the burden on local governments on data that we already have. That seemed like a pretty low hanging fruit one for us, but two, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Atlanta was doing development review on regionally significant projects and really had a lot of success with it. Where they were saying the state transportation authority and the transit authority oftentimes didn't feel like their needs and their plans were being heard in actual development review. And so their MPO was able to coordinate that review on regionally significant projects. So those are the types of technical support here. Okay. The next one here is funding programs. And this one, so the TIP is the obvious one where we create a funding program. We've also done the local planning program and then coordinated on Ready 1.0. Now we've gotten away from that a little bit. The RDA is going to take over Ready coordination, which is just fine with us. We've seen other places create other funding streams through state or federal resources. They've done local housing trust funds. They've done local planning tools of many MPOs. We are the extreme exception. We don't flex any STBG project dollars over to planning. We're one of the very few tiers that do that. Most others flex a pretty significant amount of money over into planning. And in the state of MPO, the smaller MPOs, fund themselves by flexing infrastructure dollars into planning. We thankfully have not needed to. But are there additional discretionary grants, additional programs, additional funding opportunities that we can support there? Ooh, we're all over the place on this one.
I think our number one priority is to get money for our communities and our infrastructure, so. Any help we can get finding those funding sources that I don't have, my opinion, was for.
Bring dollars back to the region. And then the last one here is policy and regulatory support. So this is TOD development review is something that we've dabbled in because we helped with the ordinance and helped with the plan and helped with best practices there when we see development proposals along the TOD routes, we deem that as regionally significant and comment on it when appropriate. Don't do that very much anymore, but we were hearing from the city of Indianapolis, they were feeling very out on the limb on that policy. Indigo has, been a partner in that and tried to comment on those too. We've only done that in Indianapolis, I think one time in Greenwood, we commented on a land use project and how it coordinated with transportation plans.
Maybe doing it for Fishers and their ADU, so Fishers is gonna do some possibility of granny flats in the village. And so we might write something.
What?
Granny flats or maybe additional dwelling units, so garages and units and all of them. With their village, and so our housing study supports that, so we might write a support if they do that.
So it's occasional regional support to cover. It's trying to provide cover for you all and talk about how local priorities are meeting regional priorities or advancing toward regional goals. Examples of policy support here could be housing policy, zoning and land use policies and best practices. When we convene the regional land use planners, they want templates, they want zoning assistance that we've shied away from that. That's not something that we've done very much at all so far. We've researched best practices and shared that with them, but we have not gone in and produced template ordinances for the region or anything like that, with the exception of the TOD ordinance in Indianapolis. Regional policy recommendations, a little bit of that's going to come out of vision eval, but not as an explicit product quite yet.
To me, this is the politics versus non-politics, because every community has different opinions on all of these, and you're not gonna get consensus on any of that, so staying out of that's important, just because I don't think you're gonna get consensus on all that. As opposed to putting on lake on the roads.
Right. All right, so the ones that came out on top were the data modeling, convening, listening, and leadership were kind of core practical toolkits and templates. Then technical support, research and best practices, funding, with like direct planning and policy research were kind of in the bottom of those. Any surprises there when we talk about how those shook out? Was it kind of how you thought? All right.
What did you say was near the bottom?
Policy and regulatory support and direct planning. All right, housing. There you go, my best. Sure. So this one's on paper. So here's the thing with housing. It's in the transportation bill. There's a bunch of stuff that we can use transportation dollars for, housing planning at the regional level. We're not gonna go into specifically what's allowed and what's not allowed right now, because it's broad and even the feds are trying to get their heads around it. They are encouraging us to do more and more housing and land use work. We're actually part of a peer exchange group that Federal Highway is leading right now that's highlighting things as best practices. Our SEDS work and our housing study have been highlighted as national best practices as a part of that peer research group. Our peers, we just saw Columbus, right? Our peers are starting to do like really significant housing work. And in all of the areas that we've kind of dabbled a toe, this is the one where we've had the most like come in and try and do more here, try and convene at a bare minimum, provide data and convene people and talk about what possible solutions are. Definitely every community is in different ways on this, and we've not gotten involved at the local level in housing studies, housing work, housing proposals, beyond what we've mentioned before. But that's the the reason that we're kind of bringing up housing so much right now is that it's kind of taken us, it's taken us that way.
I think there needs to be a block fighting all regional planning, telling me how to build houses, or where I gotta build them at, I don't. This is a big issue for me.
Yeah,
The state telling us how we can do it and trying to change this all. It's ridiculous.
yeah, I think that one would fall. I mean, we've got to place that somewhere, right? That's the advocacy conversation that we were having earlier. It'd probably be the housing community and partnerships is where that would fall. But the question here is you have $100 in MPO resources, staff time, dollars, you have $100 in resources. Which one of these approaches, or how would you weight our investment in these different approaches? And then at the end, if you had to put all $100 on one of them, just put a star next to it for me, but
Can you just go through, so housing data and decision tools, is that?
yep, housing
like, give me an
inventories.
Example of each one.
Yeah, so data and decision inventory, zoning atlas, looking at standardized information, figuring out what supply looks like versus demand in the region and where things are actually changing, right? So just informing the conversation. Research and best practices is seeing what other places are doing and bringing those back. So housing homelessness links, challenges for small builders. That's a trend that we keep seeing with small builders struggling to stay afloat in the region. Strategy and planning is regional housing strategy, kind of continuing to update that, supporting regional centers, coordinating housing goals and infrastructure investments, model zoning districts. Funding and resources would be trying to establish housing trust funds, working on that gap funding, because that's a huge issue nationally, gap funding and being able to find funding for those. Technical assistance would be local planning assistance, development review, community and partnerships would probably include advocacy there, state level stuff. Support housing summits. There are a few different organizations that run housing summits. We probably would not look to compete with those or supplant them, just support them more. Regional planning roundtable is an example of that. It's a group that we can be here actually in this building every quarter. We get pretty good participation, with at least 2/3 of the community house participate in that pretty regularly, it's been more.
And it's really about the regional planners sharing information on what they're working on and how it's being received, or they're getting, resident pushback on how they've been educating residents, and we've been just really facilitating it. It's a little bit like therapy for them, right? Because they're all going through the same things or similar things, just different parts of the region, and different layers.
So I think on the same like you said,
Okay.
I agree with you on the road funding. We need to stick with road funding. I've had this conversation a little bit about, and you explained to me why it's important that we do look at the housing, where the roads that we're looking at is going to get funding. Is this a good space? Because the road funding that we housing here. So I see where it goes hand in hand, but I think each community is different. They're going to have different needs. So I find this one really hard to put something on, because I agree we should probably be focusing more on roads than housing, because you have in our area like a Spire, you have a Franklin, or then we have a Franklin Chamber, the ND Chamber. There's all these different organizations that's already doing this that I don't think we need to be trying to repeat. And like I said earlier, over the last 10 years, about every single report that I've seen, it's like you can take Aspire's report and Indy Chambers report and somebody else's report. They're basically the same thing. So I just think we're repeating too much. I understand we need to stay engaged and have that conversation and be a part of that. I just don't think we need to spend money, a whole lot of money to stay engaged. That's just my opinion.
Is stuff like us writing draft ordinances, is that helpful for you? Or like we pulled all the corporate housing of the big 5 REITs that are buying houses in the region, what they're buying, who it is, right? The type of and then we overlaid that with or code enforcement. Like, is that type of data helpful for you?
I think what I've seen in the past, and like we Aspire, when we have a housing subdivision or something being proposed and you have all the naysayers come out, the NIMBYs come out and they don't want this, it doesn't matter. We just had a $450,000 to $600,000 subdivision that got turned down because it wasn't high end enough. And that's where we need people from Aspire and we need people from the MPO or Franklin Chamber or those organizations to come out to our meetings and say, look, folks, this is what we're seeing here. And that may not change the vote, but it's still showing a bigger support in people that are engaged day to day. And we don't get that off of anybody coming to those meetings and standing up and saying, so we're all hung out to dry.
Right.
And that happens a lot.
I have a bit of a different perspective and I'm not living in your worlds the same way I do. I'm with Indigo for those of you that don't know me. But I see the MPO as having a unique membership, right? Mayors, engineers, the planners from all of your different LPAs who are actually getting stuff done. And so whereas the MPO, or I'm sorry, the chamber, right, is trying to do something more regionally and talking about housing, but their businesses is just a little bit more broken up. And so I think there's a opportunity for the MPO to uniquely influence housing at a regional level. And by looking at it regionally, they can take in to the unique perspectives of each county. Because just because they're doing regional planning doesn't mean every county has to have the same outcome or the same region, right? Like maybe the MPO would be able to protect those areas that don't want growth. They would be able to influence growth in the areas that do want it and take some of the pressure off those that don't want it. So that's how I'm looking at it, and I do see a benefit for the MPO and helping convene and bring in all of the different perspectives and give you all maybe more of a voice. That's where so I'm gonna push, or I'm gonna put my money towards probably more on the like strategy and planning into things rather than the funding and the technical systems. So that's where I'll throw my $100.
It's, it comes up all the time. Like the land use, housing, transportation connection just comes up daily in the work that we're doing. We have one person who does a lot of housing work. Andrea does some review stuff, but that's not her full job. I would say that's our biggest investment, right? In housing right now, I don't think we're looking to spend $250,000 on pre-approved building plans or, core ordinances or anything like that. I think we agree with Aaron Bear that those probably aren't the most useful resources that we can do.
And I think what you said is what I was alluding to. That
Yeah.
we need that kind of assistance when those meetings come up. That would have that, what we're talking about.
Yeah. You know, an example pops to mind. So my background's in transportation. I think of how a decision was made by NDOT to take and all of the communities along the way, right? Like to take US 31 back in the day and move it from traffic signals to grade separated. And that sounded great for all those people that are coming and traveling on that road. But I think you all know, like what maybe intentionally or maybe unintentionally did, was it just made those people that were used to commuting half an hour, now they just get to live further out. And so now the pressure for growth goes further out and further out. And can the MPO help educate folks that when those decisions are being made, that's the result? So now Westfield has this huge, I don't think y'all from Westfield, but it has this huge pressure to grow, and they've lost maybe some of the control. And did they realize that initial decision to change how US 31 went could impact them that way? And were they ready and were they prepared? Did they have what they needed in place to be able to react to that?
All right, so please just fill that out. I'll grab that from you at the very end here. We'll move into the home stretch in the last couple of questions here. So this one is, what would make you and your staff most likely to utilize a new MPO resource? So there's a bunch of examples here of different things, and you can select as many as you want, but leaving template. of three things. There's just a bunch of examples there of how we communicate new tools and resources to you. We put it in tempo, we talk about it at policy meetings, we put it on social media, we make it available on the website. Just what are the ways that we can get that back to you and your staff so that it gets utilized? Yes, sir.
Tempo is our
Sorry.
newsletter. Tempo is our e-newsletter.
Just give us another minute. Office hours, brown bag lunch, webinar sessions, we've done those sometimes on specific plans. Tend to get well attended. All right. Thank you, we'll digest that later on. How do we define success? And so this is kind of a spectrum here from, just get this out of the way. From we finish a resource to it gets presented to the board, to it gets adopted by one community, at least one, adopted by multiple communities, or we have measurable regional outcomes. So which one of these on a spectrum from we just finished the work to we can measure the results, what's success for us? Interesting. Successful if we can measure outcomes. That's where
That's the hard.
That's the hardest one to achieve. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's the most important thing of it. If you do a lot of stuff and nothing changes, or you can't see what to do because we do all the work, it's pretty much wasted time.
That's fair. All right, there are three strategic initiatives here we wanted to talk through. Grant writing. Anna, did you want to talk a little bit about grant writing?
So we continue, when we look at other MPOs, several MPOs are providing grant writing assistance, to the locals. I, for the life of me, can't figure out how they're doing it and doing it fair. Right, we have 25 active members. If I have one staff member that's writing grants for Indianapolis, they don't have the time for anybody else. Or and nationally, right, over the last couple of years, lots of grants have come out federally. They all have the same deadline, right? Then if you have a person, or even if you have a consulting contract, you don't know that it's fair to have a consulting contract for 3 members that are going after the SS30 funding. And so I've really struggled with this. Did you have a question on it?
No, just discussion on this. I mean, we couldn't get consultants interested in this for less than $20,000
Per grant.
to write a grant, right? So it's really expensive and really time consuming. It's just the same math you guys are all dealing with when you decide whether to go after this stuff or not.
So if you guys are okay with it, I would just like to not provide the support services. We do help provide letters of support data for those of you that are going after grants. But I have not found a good way, systematically to treat everybody fairly and give Beech Road the same opportunities in Indianapolis and our staff would do too. Make sense?
This would help us smaller. Super members, I know that, you know, folks that this.
So if a small community approaches us and says, so Barry comes and says, hey, can I get a staff person to help write this grant so we can go do something, build a road, build a bridge, or then if it's a smaller community, should we shade more toward support?
I was in. It's resource.
Yeah.
I'd just say no Beech for a minute, because if Pittsburgh and Beech Grove come to me at the same time, like, I don't have.
I think it's either yes or no. I mean, there's a lot of entities and groups that help with grant writing, right? And if we're successful, they'll get a portion of it or something, but. That's a hard thing to say because some need some help, but also you guys are limited with what you can provide.
Yeah.
Maybe reviewing a grant might help, like to make sure once it's written, they're saying, hey, you know. Then build up and review it, see if it's good, see they, see if you glare at them or something, but.
I mean, I-
Assume that it's done days ahead of time.
That too, yes, way ahead of time, so you have time to do that, but. I mean, I can see it both ways, it is hard.
I think the reporting assistance guide, because you have all the dashboards to show the point, hey, somebody calls you, hey, go, well, here it is, wish I could get it.
We should definitely provide pieces and parts of it, data, regional data, from here to other central Indiana, and we do offer that, but just like the writing of the grant from start to finish.
So like for our SS4A, you guys provided data to us and we included in our grant application, but you're gonna write it, but we help with it, right? And we want help with provide some information and data and things that you have that can benefit it.
Typically, everybody asks for a letter of support from us. Can't tell you the number of times that we will get a call on a Friday afternoon at 2:00 and the deadline's 5:00 and they forgot. Like, hey, guys, we need a letter of support to me. So, no, but,
Alright.
okay.
Last one here, last discussion point. Livable Centers Initiative came up in Atlanta. It's their gold standard, right? San Diego does it, Portland does it, Denver does it, Rhode Island, Nashville, Columbus, they all have some form of this. And so, Mayor Barnett, you were asking about what have they actually done to do affordability, and this is kind of the answer to a lot of them. One side is produce as much, support whatever you can to produce as much housing as possible, so we increase supply, reduce costs at the regional level. The other theory here is that the walkable regional centers, the downtowns that everybody's building, the main streets, those make up a really small amount of land regionally. Like in our region, it's like 4% of the land, but account for like half of that downtown, like half of the job, more than half of the jobs. Tons of the business activity, tons of the property tax revenue, tons of the mixed use, more affordable housing, the higher density housing, the smaller apartment units. Those are all concentrated in really small areas. And the idea is if you just expand those areas from 4% of your land to 5% of your land, you've had like a 10x output into it. Everyone kind of knows this intrinsically, you see it pop up when you look at anything. It's where the conversations have gone about SB1 affecting everyone's bottom lines and build more density to get more revenue. That's the way it's going. So a bunch of regions have embraced that idea and provided small area planning support in these areas. Some of them have, most of them to this point, have aligned their funding to it. So they're trying to produce infrastructure projects that are funded at the infield level to support walkable projects in these areas, trail connections in these areas, biking, because the output is huge, right? Because the multiplier economic impacts are big. So the question that we have on this, and we have a framework, we have regional centers identified as a framework. We've just identified the regional centers. We haven't done planning inside of them or coordinated them with our funding or expanded them in any way. We think at a staff level, we think it makes sense to investigate doing more work on this. The regional planning roundtable seems supportive of it, but that gets expensive fast. We're talking about funding planning. And so the models, yeah.
Do you want me to talk about how these have been funded?
Yeah.
Kind of in some of these other areas. So in Atlanta and some of these other areas, they have actually taken infrastructure funding and used it for these sub area plans or regional center plans. This has been something we have not wanted to do because of our infrastructure needs. And I think the strategic plan is a good opportunity to just touch base of this group to see, is there an interest of flexing structured funds towards smaller regional center plans? Or do we just want to continue infrastructure funds, continue on the infrastructure side of the ledger? And then do we use planning dollars on the planning side of the ledger?
So the options that we have here are, yes, it's worth looking into investing some infrastructure dollars in planning. That's a huge change for us. We've never done that before. It's always been there in the background as an option if things got tough or if things got really tight. We've never needed to. Almost every other MPO has done that. And we've kept our infrastructure dollars funding infrastructure as like, that's been a major point for us. Or don't explore that. Look at ways we can spend planning dollars to support this, or don't do more than we're doing right now. Just identify the regional centers and that's enough. I think those are kind of the three routes that we could take on this. And we were curious what we all thought.
More time, so.
Yeah. Last one.
And it's not much.
We need to spit it a half-hour conversation here with the shield, but it's been more than that.
Yeah.
That's never happens at Exec. That's great. I think this is the last time we'll talk about strategic planning here before we bring a draft. So it's important to kind of tweak these things. All right, we've got 5 in here. Wow, did not expect that.
Did it say we should flex?
Look at what, explore it.
That is. Shocking.
You can always change it.
Right?
I didn't vote on it, and I would completely be against it. I'm not on the app right now, but that's
Okay.
no.
That's what I was like.
Do not spend finance, do not spend infrastructure money on planning, please.
That's been the stance forever.
Yeah.
With our. It's been a privilege, right? Because we've had enough PL funds to cover our planning program and our overhead. Our overhead has hovered right around half of our planning dollars, and that's been pretty healthy. We've been able to maintain a pretty healthy amount. The smaller MPOs just don't have that option. They don't get enough planning funds to cover their overhead. So some of them actually have flexed so much infrastructure money over that they have a bigger staff than we do, right? And we're the biggest MPO in the state by far, right? We're 4 times larger than Mercy, and they have 50 people. So, right, Anderson, I think, has pretty similar staff size to us, fraction of our size. All
I
right.
think you guys do an excellent job. I just want to put that in.
Thank you.
All right, so what we have left here is, we'll look for an October approval of this. So we'll go through the regular process, exec update, tech policy, in the October series of meetings, and that's when we'll have the draft strategic plan. You've given us a lot of really, really good guidance here. That's all I have on this one.
Thank you for your thoughts. I know this was a long one, but we just had a lot of, I'm just gonna say, issues or thoughts that we just needed to get your thoughts and opinions on, and obviously this group is only a subset of the larger group, but it was just helpful to have some dialogue, small group conversation. I've always enjoyed using this group as the sounding board to get as a temperature test of what we're thinking. So I appreciate it. I do have like 3 things. Just a reminder, we do have the call for projects that will be opening on August 31st. For twice as much money, 2 fiscal years, 30 and 31. So if you have a project that was near the cusp, like, right, we are gonna go deeper down the list. So I would highly encourage you to resubmit your projects. It will be federal funds, so remember to adjust accordingly. We did have federal certification report. We were supposed to get that this week. We have not gotten it from the feds, so I was gonna update you there. I have nothing to update you there. Hopefully we will get that soon.
The Mybor Housing Summit is in August. Elected officials, I believe you were invited. Sean's gonna be on the panel and he's going to talk about the housing preference survey that we did with Mybor in partnership. So just an FYI on that. And I did want to let you know, I think it's a long shot, but I did put my name in for the Association of NPO Board of Directors. I was the one of 2 traffic management TMAs to get, make it to round 3 for final, approval and vote. So it is, will be voted on here in the next couple of months and announced at the national conference. Again, I'm excited to make the final list on the slate. I think it's gonna be a long shot, to go against a couple of the peers that I am competing against, but I did want to let you know I'm in contention, for that spot. So I'm excited about it, if I think. I can't campaign, so I said, no campaign. I was like, well, what's the fun in that? Like, just,
But they're campaigning, right? Like, fuel. Do you stay on the policy board if you don't make the executive committee?
yeah, yes. I have to put my name in for policy. I've actually asked to stay on the policy committee, even if I make the handbook.
Oh, you can do both.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had to step off of policy.
No, I've asked to stay on it. I really found it informative, so.
Motion adjourned. Salute. Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Voters consider.
Thanks, everyone. I'll take your worksheets.
You too.
That's something. When you make that site, you have to answer the money in all the buttons. They're going. It's going hard.
Not really. They're 4 times. First Friday, or fourth Friday, make sure it's actually. Oh, I will.
There, I will.
Yeah. Good deal.
Either. See you guys.
Mayor, your dog's adorable. What's her name?
This is Power.
Hollister, what a bird.
Too high.
Thank you. It's good to see you all. Thanks for letting me join.